The ISS Prometheus tumbled out of warp space, trailing debris and venting atmosphere into the void of an unfamiliar star system. Captain Ralph Reed, a stubborn and single-minded leader, coughed as he pulled himself upright at the sparking helm controls. The ship was battered, alarms wailed, and the emergency lights flashed ominously. Reed had done the impossible. He had built an experimental warp drive in secret, defying the United Earth Council's orders, and now, as his crew faced imminent danger, he knew that this gamble might get them all killed. Status reports echoed through the bridge as his chief engineer, Amir Kessi, yelled about a hull breach on the engineering deck. The ship's doctor, Chen Li, called out about wounded crew members, while Thomas Vega, the stone-faced security chief, reported that the Lurian dreadnought Valor's Wrath was powering up its weapons. Reed forced a confident grin, but his heart hammered in his chest. Humanity's future hinged on this moment, on the success of the warp drive, and on their ability to outmaneuver the Lurians, who were notorious for their brutality. On the Lurian ship, Captain Koss studied the images of the crippled human vessel, a smirk on his face. The primitive humans had dared to challenge the might of the Lurian Empire, but they would soon learn their place in the galaxy. As Koss ordered the tractor beams to seize the human ship, the Prometheus suddenly accelerated, tearing free of the beam and vanishing in a ripple of warped starlight. Shock turned to cold dread in Koss's mind. Somehow, the humans had developed technology far beyond what the Lurian Empire believed them capable of, and now that ship was loose in Lurian space. Reed, on the other hand, felt a surge of excitement as the Prometheus raced through the stars. The warp drive had worked and humanity had just taken its first step into the wider galaxy. But the Lurians wouldn't let them escape so easily. The Prometheus dropped out of warp at a remote outpost, a relic from the early days of human expansion. Reed contacted his old friend, Drake, a Marine commander, and quickly explained the situation. As the Prometheus docked at the outpost, Reed couldn't help but feel a flicker of doubt. He was dragging Drake into a dangerous situation, but there was no turning back now. Drake arrived with his Marines ready to fight. The outpost's defenses were meager, and it wasn't long before the Lurian dreadnought found them again. In the ensuing battle, Reed and his crew managed to escape once more, but the outpost was destroyed, and Drake lost many of his men. With a heavy heart, Reed promised Drake that their sacrifices would not be in vain. They had to make the warp drive count. As they raced into uncharted space, Reed knew they were outnumbered, outgunned, and far from home. The Prometheus shuddered as it dropped out of warp, the experimental drive pushed to its limits. Vega reported multiple Lurian ships closing in fast. The situation seemed dire, but before Reed could order his crew to prepare for battle, a colossal vessel materialized above them, dwarfing the Prometheus. This was Admiral Zoran Krell's flagship, and Reed knew they were in deep trouble. Krell, a legend among the Lurians for his tactical brilliance, wasn't interested in negotiations. As Reed prepared for the worst, the Lurian flagship suddenly came under attack from a new enemy, the Zorthians. In the chaos, Drake led a daring escape back to the Prometheus, and they fled into warp space once again. The Prometheus emerged from warp in an unknown sector, battered and low on power. With no other options, Reed made contact with an alien vessel that appeared on their sensors, introducing itself as the Kran Collective. Ambassador Zen, the Kran representative, offered an alliance, human warp technology, in exchange for sanctuary and resources. Reed reluctantly agreed, seeing no other way to ensure humanity's survival. The Prometheus was repaired, and Kessi, the engineer, marveled at the Kran's advanced technology. But Reed knew their involvement in an interstellar war was inevitable. The Kran had been fighting the Zorthians, and now humanity was caught in the middle. Reed's first mission with the Kran involved a covert operation against the Zorthians, who were led by a ruthless general named Mockery. With the help of a defector from the Zorthian hierarchy, Princess Zara, they launched a daring attack on the Zorthian shipyards, crippling their ability to wage war. The mission was a success, but the cost was high, and Reed couldn't shake the feeling that their involvement in this conflict was only deepening. As the war dragged on, Reed and his crew became key players in the fight against the Zorthians. Their warp technology gave them a crucial edge, but it also made them targets. General Mockery was relentless, targeting civilian populations and threatening to destroy everything they had built. Reed's determination only grew stronger. He would do whatever it took to end this war and protect his people. But just as they seemed to be turning the tide, Reed received devastating news. King Voskar, the Zorthian ruler, had developed a bioweapon capable of wiping out entire colonies. When they arrived at the Helios colony, it was already too late. The colonists had been transformed into grotesque, mutated husks. Reed recognized the bioweapon's signature. It was Zorthian technology, and it pointed to one man, General Thrax, the warlord who had escaped after their first encounter. Reed knew they had to stop him, but Thrax had retreated to the Vidian asteroid belt, turning it into a fortress. With the help of Queen Zara and Ambassador Zen, Reed launched a final assault on Thrax's base. The battle was fierce, and the Prometheus took heavy damage. But in the end, Reed's team managed to infiltrate the base and neutralize the bioweapon. Thrax was captured, and his plans were foiled, but at a great cost. Queen Zara, Reed's ally and friend, was mortally wounded in the final battle. With her dying breath, she made Reed promise to continue the fight for peace. Reed was left with a heavy heart and a war-weary crew, but the Prometheus had become a symbol of hope, a beacon of what humanity could achieve when it dared to reach for the stars. The scars of war were deep, but with the help of their new allies, Reed and his crew began the long process of rebuilding. The galaxy would never be the same, but neither would the humans who had ventured into its vastness. As the Prometheus sailed through the stars, now equipped with the combined technology of multiple species, Reed knew that their journey was far from over. The future was uncertain, but they had taken the first step, and that was all humanity had ever needed, a chance to prove that they were more than the sum of their parts, that they were capable of greatness, even in the face of insurmountable odds. The Prometheus had done more than just survive. It had thrived, and its legacy would echo through the galaxy for generations to come. The aftermath of war. The war was over, but the galaxy was far from peaceful. The Zorthian Empire had crumbled, and with its fall, power vacuums emerged across the stars. Former allies became rivals, and new threats lurked in the shadows. Captain Ralph Reed stood on the bridge of the ISS Prometheus, gazing out at the void. The ship was no longer just a vessel. It was a symbol, a beacon of hope in a galaxy struggling to rebuild from the ashes of conflict. The repairs to the Prometheus had gone beyond mere restoration. With the combined expertise of Cran engineers and the ingenuity of human scientists, the ship was now a marvel of interspecies collaboration. Its hull gleamed with a mix of human alloys and Cran nanotechnology, and its systems hummed with power drawn from hybrid energy sources. Yet, despite these advancements, Reed couldn't shake the sense of unease that had settled over him. The galaxy had changed, and so had Reed. The war had taken its toll, not just physically, but emotionally. The loss of Queen Zara weighed heavily on him, as did the countless lives lost in the conflict. He had become a symbol of humanity's resilience, but he was also a man haunted by the decisions he had made, by the lives he couldn't save. As he stared into the endless expanse of space, he knew that the real battle was just beginning, the battle to maintain the fragile peace they had fought so hard to achieve. Drake entered the bridge, his presence as solid and reassuring as ever. "Captain, we've received a transmission from the Interstellar Council. They want you to attend a summit on Nova's Prime. Something about new threats emerging on the outer rim." Reed nodded, his expression grim. "We knew this day would come, Marcus. The galaxy's not going to let us rest just because we won one war. There's always something lurking out there waiting to take advantage of the chaos." Drake crossed his arms, his gaze steady. "And we'll be ready for it. The Prometheus is stronger than ever, and so are we." But Reed wasn't so sure. The galaxy had been fractured by war, and trust was a rare commodity. The Interstellar Council had been formed in the aftermath of the Zorthian conflict, an attempt to create a governing body that could prevent another war. It was a noble idea, but Reed knew that old grudges and new ambitions would make unity difficult to achieve. The Prometheus set course for Nova's Prime, its engines humming with the smooth, efficient power of its hybrid drive. As they traveled through space, Reed's mind was consumed with thoughts of the future. He couldn't shake the feeling that they were heading into something far more dangerous than they had ever faced before. Nova's Prime was a planet of stark contrasts. It was a world where ancient architecture met cutting-edge technology, where towering skyscrapers cast long shadows over cobblestone streets. The summit was held in a grand hall that had once been a palace, its walls adorned with tapestries depicting the history of countless species. Reed entered the hall with Drake and Vega by his side, their presence a reminder that he wasn't alone in this fight. The room was filled with representatives from every corner of the galaxy. Ambassador Zen from the Cran Collective, envoys from the Lurian remnants, even a delegation from the newly formed Zorthian Republic. But there were others, too, faces Reed didn't recognize, and their presence only heightened his sense of foreboding. The summit began with formalities, but it wasn't long before the real issues were brought to the table. Reports of pirate fleets preying on isolated colonies, rogue AI systems causing havoc in uncharted sectors, and rumors of a new empire rising in the far reaches of space. Reed listened carefully, his mind racing as he pieced together the fragments of information. The galaxy was on the brink of another crisis, and this time the stakes were even higher. As the discussions grew heated, Reed found himself thinking about the Prometheus and what it represented. It was more than just a ship. It was a promise that humanity would stand firm in the face of adversity, that they would protect their allies and fight for peace. But it was also a reminder of the cost of that promise. Reed knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, they would demand even greater sacrifices. When the summit finally adjourned, Reed lingered in the hall, deep in thought. Ambassador Zen approached him, his expression unreadable. "Captain Reed," Zen said, his voice smooth and measured, "it seems we are entering a new era, one fraught with peril and uncertainty, but also with opportunity." Reed met Zen's gaze, searching for any hint of hidden motives. "Opportunity for what, Ambassador? Another war? Another chance to prove ourselves on the battlefield?" Zen's mandibles clicked thoughtfully. "Opportunity to build something lasting, something that can withstand the trials of time. The galaxy is a dangerous place, Captain, but it is also full of potential. We have the chance to shape that potential into something better." Reed considered Zen's words, his thoughts drifting back to the crew of the Prometheus and the sacrifices they had made. He thought of Zara, of Drake, of all the people who had stood by his side. They had fought for a future worth living in, a future where cooperation could triumph over conflict. But they had also learned that such a future would not come easily. "I hope you're right, Zen," Reed finally said. "Because if we fail, the galaxy might not get another chance." Zen inclined his head, a gesture of agreement. "Indeed, Captain. The future is uncertain, but together we have the power to shape it. Let's make sure we do so wisely." Reed watched as Zen walked away, his mind heavy with the weight of responsibility. The Prometheus would soon be called upon again to defend not just humanity, but the fragile alliances they had forged. Reed knew that the road ahead would be fraught with danger, but he also knew that they couldn't afford to back down now. As the Prometheus departed Nova's Prime, Reed stood on the bridge, gazing out at the stars. The galaxy was vast and full of unknowns, but for the first time in a long while, he felt a flicker of hope. They had survived one war, and they would survive whatever came next. Because they were more than just a ship, more than just a crew. They were the Prometheus, and they would carry the light of hope into the darkest corners of the galaxy, no matter the cost. Into the unknown, the Prometheus glided through the void, its engines a soft hum in the silence of space. Captain Reed stood on the bridge, his gaze fixed on the star-streaked horizon. The weight of the galaxy's future pressed heavily on his shoulders, but he had long grown accustomed to that burden. Around him, the crew moved with the efficient precision that came from years of shared hardship and triumph. They were veterans of countless battles, and though they carried their scars, they were united by a singular purpose: to safeguard the fragile peace they had fought so hard to achieve. The mission was simple, at least on paper. The Prometheus was to chart a course into uncharted space, following the trail of strange energy readings that had been detected on the outskirts of known space. The readings were faint but consistent, and their origin was unknown. It could be nothing, or it could be the first sign of a new threat. Reed knew that in this galaxy, the unknown was often dangerous. "Captain, we're approaching the coordinates," Vega reported from her station, her voice steady. Reed nodded, his eyes narrowing as he studied the data on the main display. The energy readings were growing stronger, more erratic. "Drop us out of warp and bring us to a full stop," he ordered. "Let's see what we're dealing with." The ship shuddered slightly as it exited warp, the star field snapping back into focus. Before them loomed a massive structure unlike anything they had ever encountered. It was ancient, its surface pitted and scarred by eons of exposure to the elements. The structure was shaped like a massive ring, with a dark, ominous center that seemed to swallow light itself. Reed felt a chill run down his spine. "What the hell is that?" he muttered under his breath. "Scanners are picking up massive energy signatures from within the structure," Vega said, her fingers flying over her console. "But it's like nothing we've seen before. The readings are off the charts." Drake, who had been standing silently by Reed's side, finally spoke. "It looks like some kind of gate, maybe a portal to another part of the galaxy or somewhere else entirely." Reed frowned, his mind racing with possibilities. A portal? If it was, where did it lead? And more importantly, who had built it and why? He knew they had to proceed with caution. The galaxy was full of ancient technologies, many of which were better left undisturbed. "Kai, can you determine if it's active?" Reed asked, turning to his chief engineer. Key studied the readings for a moment, her brow furrowed in concentration. "There's a dormant energy field around the structure," she said slowly. "It's stable for now, but if we send a signal or get too close, we could trigger a reaction." Reed weighed their options. The logical course of action would be to report back to the Interstellar Council, let them send a specialized team to investigate. But something about the structure called to him. A gut feeling that told him they were meant to be here, that they had to uncover its secrets before anyone else did. "Prep a drone," Reed ordered finally. "Let's see if we can get a closer look without putting the ship at risk." The drone was launched moments later, its tiny engines propelling it towards the ancient ring. The crew watched in tense silence as it approached the structure. The drone's sensors sent back streams of data, displaying detailed scans of the ring's surface. Strange symbols and carvings covered the ancient metal, their meaning lost to time. "Looks like it's been abandoned for millennia," Drake observed. "But those energy readings, something's still alive in there." As the drone neared the center of the ring, the energy readings spiked. The bridge was suddenly bathed in red light as alarms blared, warning of an impending power surge. "Captain, the energy field is destabilizing," Kai shouted, her voice tight with urgency. "We need to pull back now." But before Reed could give the order, the drone's feed was abruptly cut off, the screen going dark. At the same time, the structure began to hum with power, its surface glowing with an eerie light. The ring's center, once a void of darkness, now pulsed with a swirling vortex of energy. "Brace for impact," Reed shouted, gripping the armrest of his chair as the Prometheus was rocked by a shockwave. The ship's shields flared, absorbing the brunt of the blast, but the force was enough to send several crew members tumbling from their stations. The vortex in the center of the ring continued to grow, its pull tugging at the Prometheus like a powerful current. Reed's mind raced as he struggled to keep the ship steady. Whatever they had activated, it was far beyond anything they had encountered before. "Captain, we're being pulled in!" Vega's voice was strained, her hands flying over the controls in a desperate attempt to counter the pull. "Full reverse thrusters," Reed ordered, his voice calm despite the chaos around him. "Kai, divert all power to the engines," but it was no use. The vortex was too strong, and the Prometheus was dragged inexorably towards the ancient gate. The swirling energy filled the view screen, a kaleidoscope of colors and shapes that defied comprehension. Reed felt a moment of pure terror as the ship was swallowed by the vortex, the bridge awash in blinding light. And then, just as suddenly, it was over. The Prometheus emerged on the other side, the vortex snapping shut behind them with a final burst of energy. The bridge was eerily silent as the crew regained their bearings, the only sound the soft hum of the ship's systems. Reed blinked, his vision slowly adjusting to the dim light of their new surroundings. The stars outside the viewport were unfamiliar, their patterns strange and disorienting. The ancient ring was gone, replaced by a vast expanse of empty space. "Status report," Reed said quietly, his voice cutting through the silence. Kai was the first to respond, her voice shaky. "All systems are stable, Captain, but we're not where we were before. I can't find any familiar constellations." Vega's hands trembled slightly as she checked her instruments. "Captain, I think we've traveled to another part of the galaxy, maybe even another dimension." Reed felt a cold knot of dread settle in his stomach. They were in uncharted territory, far beyond the reach of the Interstellar Council or any known civilization. Whatever this place was, they were on their own. "We need to find out where we are and how to get back," Reed said, his voice firm despite the uncertainty gnawing at him. "Kai, start running scans. Vega, try to establish communication with any nearby systems. We need answers, and fast." As the crew set to work, Reed couldn't shake the feeling that they had just crossed a threshold, one from which there was no turning back. The Prometheus was a ship of discovery, but some discoveries were best left alone. Whatever secrets this new region of space held, they would have to face them head-on. Reed took a deep breath, steeling himself for the challenges ahead. The galaxy had always been a dangerous place, but now they were venturing into the truly unknown. And in the depths of space, in a region untouched by any known species, the Prometheus would have to rely on more than just its advanced technology. They would need courage, ingenuity, and the unbreakable bond that had seen them through so many trials before.